Is the Shroud of Turin really the burial cloth that once wrapped the body of Jesus Christ? Or is it just a clever medieval fake, made to fool the faithful centuries ago? This single cloth has fascinated millions of people all over the world for centuries, and even today, it continues to raise eyebrows and spark debates in churches, universities, and laboratories alike. One of the biggest mysteries about the shroud has always been the faint reddish stains that seem to form an outline of a crucified man. For years, believers and scientists alike have wondered, is this real blood? And if so, what kind of blood is it? Does it match what we'd expect for someone from the region where Jesus lived and died? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the story of the Shroud of Turin, how it survived fires and wars, how it was studied under microscopes and X-rays, how people tried to prove it real or fake, and finally, what the latest scientific tests say about its mysterious blood type. And at the end, we'll see how this so-called answer might raise even more questions than it solves. So grab a cup of tea, sit back, and join me on this journey through history, science, and mystery. Let's see if we can get closer to the truth behind the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is a piece of linen cloth, about 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. When you look at it, you see a faint image of a man front and back, with wounds that match what the Bible describes of the crucifixion of Jesus. You can make out bloodstains on the head, which people link to the crown of thorns. You see stains on the wrists and feet, which match nail wounds. There are marks on the back, which look like whip marks. There's even a wound on the side, which matches where Jesus was pierced by a spear according to the Gospel of John. For believers, this is powerful evidence that this cloth is the actual burial shroud that wrapped Jesus' body after he died. For skeptics, it's just too convenient, too perfect. They think it's more likely a clever medieval fake made to boost church attendance and donations. The first recorded appearance of the shroud dates back to the 1350s in Lirey, France. A French knight named Geoffroy de Charny displayed it at a small church. Pilgrims came from miles around to see it, pray in front of it, and leave offerings. From there, the shroud passed through many hands, moved across Europe, and ended up in Turin, Italy, where it's been kept ever since. One dramatic moment in the shroud's history happened in 1532 when a fire broke out in the chapel where it was stored. The shroud was inside a silver casket. The heat melted the silver, which dripped onto the folded cloth, burning holes through it. Nuns later patched the holes with fabric pieces that are still visible today. Some scientists believe the damage and repairs may have contaminated parts of the cloth, complicating later tests, including the carbon dating that suggested it might be medieval. For centuries, the Catholic Church kept the shroud mostly hidden. It was shown to the public on rare occasions. Each time, thousands would gather just to catch a glimpse. But in the 20th century, science got involved in a big way. In 1898, an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia took the first ever photographs of the shroud. When he developed the negatives, he was stunned. The negative showed a positive image of the man's face in stunning detail, almost like a photo. This discovery shocked the world and sparked modern interest in studying the shroud with science. Since then, scientists from many fields have examined the shroud: chemists, physicists, biologists, forensic experts. They've used microscopes, ultraviolet light, spectroscopy, and even 3D imaging to study the cloth. One of the biggest investigations was the 1978 Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP for short. For 5 days, a team of American scientists worked around the clock in Turin, taking thousands of photos, examining the fibers, and collecting data. STURP's findings were both fascinating and controversial. They concluded the image was not painted, dyed, or burned onto the cloth. They found no pigments that could have formed the image. They also confirmed the reddish stains were real blood, though they didn't determine the exact type back then. But STURP didn't settle the debate. In 1988, the Vatican allowed a piece of the shroud to be carbon dated by labs in Zurich, Oxford, and Tucson. The results dated the sample to between 1260 and 1390 AD, right in the medieval period when it first appeared in France. For many skeptics, This was the smoking gun, proof it was a fake. But the story didn't end there. Critics of the carbon dating argued that the piece tested came from a corner that might have been repaired with newer cloth after the 1532 fire. They also pointed out that centuries of handling by countless people could have contaminated the sample with newer carbon. Some researchers even claimed that bacteria and fungi could skew the dating results. So the carbon dating remains hotly debated. So what about the blood? Was it really blood? Or could it have been paint or some other substance to make it look more authentic? For decades, scientists tested the stains. They found evidence of hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen. They also detected bilirubin, a substance that forms when blood breaks down after death. These results supported the idea that the stains were real blood, not paint. Still, there was one big question: what blood type was it? In modern forensic science, blood typing is crucial. It can link crime scenes to suspects, victims to evidence. So naturally, researchers wanted to know the blood type on the shroud. Early tests hinted it might be type AB, but the methods back then weren't as advanced as today's techniques. So scientists kept testing over the years, using newer methods as technology improved. The latest tests have confirmed it. The blood on the shroud is indeed human blood, and it is type AB. Why is this interesting? Well, type AB is one of the rarest blood types in the world today. Only about 4% of people worldwide have it. However, it's more common among people from the Middle East and certain Jewish populations, which matches the region where Jesus lived. Some researchers even say that ancient Jewish burial cloths from the same era sometimes show traces of type AB blood. Does this prove the shroud really wrapped Jesus's body? Not exactly. But it does raise questions. If the shroud is a medieval fake, how did the forger get real human blood of type AB? Blood types weren't discovered until the early 1900s by Karl Landsteiner. So in the Middle Ages, people had no idea what blood types even were. Of course, skeptics have explanations. Some say the forger might have used real blood from a volunteer or an animal, and it just happens to match type AB by chance. Others argue that the type AB result could be due to contamination from centuries of handling. Thousands of pilgrims have touched or kissed the shroud over the years, possibly leaving traces of their own DNA and blood on the cloth. Still, forensic scientists point out that the blood stains match the wounds described in the crucifixion accounts, on the head, wrists, feet, back, and side. The flow patterns of the stains also match what we'd expect if a crucified person was wrapped in the cloth. Forensic pathologists who have studied the shroud say the wounds appear consistent with Roman crucifixion methods. Dr. Frederick Zugibe, a well-known forensic expert, studied the shroud for years. He found that the wounds and blood patterns on the shroud match what you would expect for a crucified person. He also noticed the blood shows clotting and serum separation, which happens in real blood and would be hard to fake with paint. Another detail is the high level of bilirubin in the blood stains, which is common in people who suffer severe trauma and blood loss, matching what Jesus would have gone through during crucifixion. The discovery of type AB blood on the shroud adds another piece to the puzzle. It doesn't prove the shroud is real, but it does challenge the idea that it's just a painted fake from the Middle Ages. Some researchers have tried to get DNA from the bloodstains, but it's hard because the shroud has been handled by many people over the centuries, leading to contamination. This makes it difficult to get clean DNA from the original blood. Tests on mitochondrial DNA have shown a mix of Middle Eastern and European markers, which makes sense given the shroud's long history in Europe, but it doesn't tell us much about the person originally wrapped in it. Future technologies like advanced DNA sequencing may help, but they also raise questions. Should we test what many consider a holy relic? What if the results are unexpected? Would it change how people see the shroud and their faith? These questions are why the shroud continues to be both powerful and controversial. For many believers, it's a physical reminder of Jesus' suffering and resurrection. For scientists, it's a puzzle that still defies complete explanation. Beyond science, the shroud has inspired art and literature for centuries. Some believe its image influenced how artists depicted Jesus with long hair and a beard. Even today, it appears in movies and books, and every new test brings fresh debates. When the shroud is displayed in Turin, many people still wait for hours just to see it for a few moments. The Catholic Church has not officially said if the shroud is real or fake. Instead, it calls the shroud an icon that helps people reflect on Jesus' sacrifice. Pope John Paul II called it a mirror of the gospel, helping believers think deeply about Christ's suffering. For many, whether the shroud is real is less important than what it represents: faith, hope, and the mystery of the resurrection. Scientists, however, continue to search for answers. New imaging and analysis methods may reveal more details in the future. Some hope to find parts of the cloth untouched by repairs to test again, while others hope technology will one day separate the original DNA from contamination. For now, the Shroud of Turin remains one of the world's greatest mysteries. The discovery of type AB blood adds a new twist but leaves us with more questions. Does the blood type prove it's real? Maybe. Does it prove it's fake? Not really. It keeps the debate alive, keeps us curious, and keeps the mystery alive. What do you think? Is the shroud truly the burial cloth of Jesus, or is it a clever medieval fake? Does the blood type change your view, or is it just another part of this unsolved puzzle? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about history's greatest mysteries. Don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest mysteries teach us the most about faith, curiosity, and the search for truth. See you next time.